This is the Chinese Democracy and Human Rights Alliance second interview to our famous journalist, Mr. Cheng Xiang. Today, we would like to invite Mr. Cheng Xiang talk about the Chinese Communist Party regime's infiltration strategy. Mr. Chen, please.
Okay, thank you, Jane, for inviting me to talk about this topic, and which I think is very timely. I remember a few years ago, the the Hudson Institute in the US has published a report titled "The CCP's Foreign Interference Operations: How the US and Other Democracies Should Respond." I think this Hudson Institute report is a wake-up call because it's produced quite alarming facts about the CCP's operations in the US and other foreign democracies. The most striking fact to me is that it revealed that the CCP spent an estimated 10 billion of US dollar per year.
Wow, that's a really big amount of money, 10 billion.
Yes, 10 billion a year. Doing what? Doing focusing on two types of activities: the propaganda and the United Front. And according to this report, uh, they are trying to co-opt those Chinese community leaders and building relationship with Western enablers. What's meant by enablers? Enablers are those people who help to enable Chinese policies in the US. And the purpose of co-opting Chinese community leaders as well as Western enablers is to make the foreign people, the foreigners, serve the CCP. And the types of activities that they engage, according to the report, they call them the three C's. What are these C's? Three verbs beginning with C. First of all, the covert, meaning doing things stealthily; corrupt, trying to buy people with money; or coercive, meaning to threaten people into obedience. Now, according to the Hudson Institute report, they spend that much of money trying to engaging in these three C's activities in order to help serve the CCP's foreign policy purpose in the US. Now, according to this report, the focus is on the propaganda and United Front. But most people understand that China is rely very much on its propaganda. The Chinese regime rely very much on propaganda to maintain its regime stability. Mao Zedong once said that propaganda is the pen, whereas the gun is the weapon. So they use the gun and the pen to 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 fight against the enemy, and then they succeed in seizing the regime, the political power. So the, the pen to the CCP is as important as the gun. Now they are trying to, I think since the year 2008, they have started a major program. They saw the Grand External Propaganda Program. this grand external propaganda program is to try to buy out some foreign journalists to try to co-opt them to write features, articles in their favor. This is their grand propaganda program.
This says the Chinese Communist Party regime using a lot of money to buy out foreign journalists to say good things about the Chinese Communist Party regime without point out their violation of human rights and genocide, etc. Right?
Exactly. And they not just try to buy out individual journalists, they try to buy out some pages in some of the major mainstream newspaper in the US, which I don't want to disclose their names.
However, as what I know, there were about 60 famous TV programmers and reporters and business owners went to China to visit. And so-called visit, they had plenty of fun, had a lot of fun, but without spending so much. And they have choices to have a contract to bring to the United States and have import a lot of Chinese goods and in low price and pocket into their own pocket.
Mm-hmm. And part of this grand external propaganda program is to create a number of Chinese language news outlet in the States, either newspaper or TV outlets. Now, I think they have a plan to call a meeting every twice annually in China. According to the latest such meeting in 2019, they have summoned a massive number of editors and reporters from all over the world. These are the editors and reporters of major Chinese language media outlets spreading across the several continents. They summoned them to Shijiazhuang in Hebei province, and for those people attending this conference, a total of 450 editors and reporters coming from all over the world.
Wow.
To meet in Shijiazhuang, and among these 450 odd people, I found out that 1/3 came from the U.S. and Canada.
1/3.
1/3 of them, meaning that the focus of this grand propaganda program is very highly focused in North America, and therefore I think the government, the government should be very worried about this trend.
I believe the United States and Canada is one of the targets, the most important targets for the Chinese Communist Party regime. Because when we grow up, we were told the United States is the most biggest, strongest, and richest country, hard to take down, but it is the first biggest enemy of a Chinese Communist Party regime. Ever since I grew up, we were told so, and also we know the Chinese Communist Party, ever since its establishment in 1921, it set up its goals, which is liberate the entire world. In fact, the goal is to take over the entire world instead of liberate entire humanity. The Chinese Communist Party regime never stopped its propaganda, and I used to work as a Foreign Languages Express. There are many publication houses and companies under its umbrella, like a Beijing Review, and also people's information and establish China, and also all kind of newspapers or weekly magazines or monthly books and so on. And we targeted on foreigners every day, year after years. And all the things never changed. The target never changed, which is the entire world, but fully use the United States and the Western world free society.
Yes. Apart from propaganda, I think the 10 billion annual expenditure is also used in the United Front world. What is meant by United Front? Many Westerners didn't really understand this term. By the Chinese Communist Party upheld the United Front as one of their three magic weapons. This is the definition by Mao Zedong, the founder of the CCP. What are these three magic weapons? First of all, the building of the party network, underground party network. Secondly is the military. And finally is the United Front. The communists saw these three factors as the three magic weapons that they can use to conquer the world. Now, so what is meant by United Front? United Front means to try to isolate one's enemy by trying to unite as many people as possible, to win over as many people as possible to your side. And in this process, they succeed in isolating the enemy. Now, this is the original definition of the United Front. But now we know that they are applying this United Front strategy to co-opt all those fellow roaders.
So, in fact, the United Front operations is one of the biggest underground operation of a Chinese spy entity, isn't it?
Yes. And I mean, from the history of the Chinese Revolution between 1921 and 1949, the CCP start with a very little party organization with no armed military forces at all. But how can they defeat the KMT government, the central government at that time? It is by this United Front. The United Front means to try to co-opt people who share your ideals or agree with your policy and 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 are willing to do your bidding. They include people in the government. They include people in the big corporations. They are they are willing to implement the CCP policies. Now, United Front strategy is a very deadly weapon, I would say, highly successful because it addresses the weaknesses of mankind. Every people have weakness of either this or one the other sort. For example, if you crave for money, then the United Fund people can offer you business or very lucrative rewards. If you crave for position, they can offer you high positions. If you are people who indulge in vanity, they can provide you all sorts of vanities. So everyone has some sort of human weakness. The United Fund strategies can address each and everyone's weakness and and manipulate your weakness to their advantage. Of course, they have to spend a lot of money in doing so, but that's the reason why they have to spend so much money, 10 billion a year, to conduct this kind of United Funds operations.